You know, I must say, I am very blessed and very fortunate right now. This is the off season of the NFL, right? And so a lot of times when it comes to watching podcasts or listening to podcasts, there's a lot of reaching when it comes to stories. You need some sort of segment to hold on to and stretch out for like a half hour or an hour or however long that your podcast is for. But you know what? Something that it's funny, the last couple of weeks, I'm just like, oh, man, is there anything to talk about when it comes to the Vikings? Because I'm not that guy. I at least like to think that I'm not that podcaster that's going to be like, okay, there's nothing to talk about, so I'm just going to reach and talk about, I don't know, the third string linebacker on this team or something like. It seems like the last couple of weeks, something at the 11th hour has happened. And so I'm very grateful and very thankful for this offseason, because oftentimes it can be a grind to go through these types of shows, but damn it, the NFL has given me nothing but stuff, endless stuff to talk about. So anyway, this is Realistic Randy, Mediokr Best Sports Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Quite a few things to unload on this podcast. Number one, Rick Spielman, we'll get this out the way real quick. Rick Spielman was extended by 1 year. He got a 1-year extension through the 2020-2021 season. So basically, with Mike Zimmer and Kirk Cousins, Rick Spielman, they're all in for, another 2 years at this point. Now, who's to say this can go in one or two ways? Either, A, they're trying to protect, just like kind of like with Mike Zimmer, the Wolf brothers are trying to protect Rick Spielman from, I guess, being a lame duck GM, much like Mike Zimmer, where it's like, whenever he gets up to the podium, so it kind of eases the reporters and the media from saying, hey, so you're in the last deal of your contract, what do you think is going to happen? So it kind of puts that to the side, whereas you really are on a 1-year deal and you need to prove your worth in 2019. If not, you will be fired. Or maybe they're saying, you know what, damn it, we're going to put you in line with the Kirk Cousins contract, so damn it, if things fall apart, you both are fired after the 2020-2021 season, in which case the Vikings will hopefully, cross my fingers at this point, will hopefully draft Trevor Lawrence with the first-round pick in the 2021 draft. We'll just have to see. It doesn't really mean anything as far as this 1-year extension. We'll just have to see how it plays out. So anyway, moving forward from that, a couple of tidbits, or actually really one tidbit for the Vikings, and then we'll talk about the 2 rule changes in the NFL that just happened this past week. One that I am a fan of, one that I completely agree with, and one where I'm like, I don't really agree with it whatsoever. So we'll talk about that. But first, Mike Zimmer and his comments about Xavier Rhodes. Mike Zimmer this past week said about Xavier Rhodes, quote, and this was according to Ben Gessling of the Minnesota Star Tribune, quote, I just don't think he played as well as he can play. He needs to play up to his ability level. We're paying him a lot of money. He needs to play up to that contract. So there's a couple of things to take away from that. Number one, I agree with Mike Zimmer. I agree with head coach Mike Zimmer. And when it comes to 2018 Xavier Rhodes, he just didn't play up to the level that he's capable of. Now, a lot of things go up, oh, he's been injured and all that stuff. But you know what? Xavier Rhodes, from what we've seen on the field, has been injured or playing injured the last 2 years, right? So we mentioned this a couple of times, wherever it's like coincidentally when Xavier Rhodes, when he gets beat on a play, he gives up a pass, or even if a guy drops a pass, if he gets beat in coverage, it's like, it's kind of like Peter Griffin on Family Guy. Just kind of nursing his knee a little bit. It kind of reminds me also, too, of Paul Pierce. So if you guys remember, I think this was the 2007 NBA Finals, in which Paul Pierce, the Boston Celtics, were going against the LA Lakers. And this was the first year after they traded away Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett got traded to the Boston Celtics. You Minnesota Vikings fans, you're probably also T-Wolves fans, where KG got traded to the Boston Celtics. That was the first year of the Big Three in Boston with KG, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen, and they went up against the LA Lakers with Kobe Bryant, right? And then I don't know which game this was, but I'm pretty sure it was in Boston, where Paul Pierce, he just went down. It's like, oh my God, I'm down, I'm hurt. And it's like, oh my God, like everyone just gasped for air, just like, oh my goodness, Paul Pierce, he's out forever, right? He went out on a wheelchair, just like everything, all was just lost. Oh, just the clouds just hovered over. What's that stadium they play in? the Garden, what's it, TD Bank Garden, whatever it is they play at. And all of a sudden, like 3 minutes of game time later, Paul Pierce comes back springing into action like, I'm back, baby. And that reminds me of Xavier Rhodes, where it's just like, yo, like, coincident. And we're talking about not just last year, but the last 2 years, even in 2017, where he was, in my opinion, he was the best cornerback in the league in 2017. I watched Xavier Rhodes in person at US Bank Stadium in the 2016 season D the hell up out of Odell Beckham Jr. So much so that Odell Beckham Jr. got erratic, and I don't remember if that was the game where Eli called him out, whatever, but I know that Odell, he was pissed off. He was really ticked off in that game because Xavier Rhodes shut him down. I really thought he was the best cornerback in 2017, but in 2016, I witnessed the growth of Xavier Rhodes. And so much so that I believed in Xavier Rhodes, so much so that in 2017, I did this little giveaway challenge or whatever, whereas they went up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I want to say this was like week 2. I think this was week 2 of the 2017 season. This was the first game that Case Keenum played after Sam Bradford went out after that New Orleans game, in which case I put out a video and said, look, we're probably going to lose this game with Case Keenum. Who knows what's going to happen? But Xavier Rhodes, I'm so confident in Xavier Rhodes that I will give away a $50 gift card to Lids if Antonio Brown gets more than 70 yards receiving and a touchdown. I think maybe I said maybe like 5 receptions or something like that. I can't remember if I gave a reception number, but more than 70 yards receiving and a touchdown. He has to get both of those, and then reception numbers I can't remember. And Antonio Brown didn't do that, all right? Xavier Rhodes was a shutdown cornerback. This dude, the physical nature of him, the size, and you know, he's not the fastest corner. He's still pretty fast, but you know what? He can break up passes. He's just a physical-ass cornerback, man. Can man up, play zone, can do anything that you can ask of a cornerback to do. And you know what? But in 2018, he just wasn't that guy at all. He just wasn't that guy. And you know what? Another thing that Mike Zimmer referenced was, yeah, his play wasn't good, but also we're paying him a lot of money. Xavier Rhodes in 2019, he has a cap hit of almost $13.5 million, okay? He's going to make close to $13.5 million in 2019. Okay, for 2018, Xavier Rhodes, we can't get that for $13.5 million against the cap. We just can't do that, okay? And by the way, based on that, and not only do I feel like Xavier Rhodes is still going to be on this roster because, A, the way that Mike Zimmer, you can tell he's just trying to motivate Xavier Rhodes. But B, when it comes to him liking his guys, he props them up, whatever, or he kind of digs at them a little bit, just whatever. As far as, this is my guy. And Xavier Rhodes, that is Mike Zimmer's guy. But also, you just killed any sort of trade value that Xavier Rhodes may have had. So where now, based on the track record of the Vikings and because of Mike Zimmer and his preference for certain guys, I think eventually we're looking at an inevitable Trey Waynes trade. Okay, so I would personally trade away Xavier Rhodes for Trey Waynes, who is cheaper, and at least this is a what have you done for me lately league. And lately, Trey Waynes has been far and away better than Xavier Rhodes in 2018 is concerned. But he talked about his money, and it's right. Xavier Rhodes needs to play up to the contract that he's getting. But something that's really interesting is that, and I can't believe that no one's talking about this. Like, I don't know if I've just been under a rock the last couple of days or if I've just been out of it to where I just haven't been paying attention. I can't believe no one has been talking about this because, and by the way, I'm about to reference Xavier Rhodes and his Twitter account. Can't believe no one's talked about this. Xavier Rhodes and his Twitter account, he liked a couple of tweets the past few days. And for the record, before I even get into this, I'm not one to investigate players and their social media accounts. I really don't care. And for the most part, I think it's all rubbish. I don't really care I don't follow any players because I don't care. Like, I just don't care. And I think half of it is a facade anyway. Like Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, for instance, yesterday, and I think this was because he's an MSU guy. He's a Michigan State guy. So Michigan State, they played the LSU. They played LSU in the NCAA tournament. And if I'm not mistaken, Michigan State, they beat LSU. But it's funny because before that game, Kirk Cousins tweeted out, "Woke up to this LSU flag on my front lawn this morning. Nothing like a little neighborly competition during hashtag March Madness. And you know what's crazy? Guys like Kirk Cousins, where it seems like he's trying to put on a show, it seems like he's trying a little bit too hard on social media. I wouldn't be surprised, and this is all speculation at this point, there's nothing to it. I wouldn't be surprised if Kirk Cousins went out and bought an LSU flag and planted it in his yard and then took a picture and said, look what I found this morning. This is crazy. But anyway, I don't pay attention to athletes or celebrity social media accounts. But it's interesting because I came across this on Twitter. Xavier Rhodes, since those Zimmer comments in which he was saying he didn't play up to par and he's making a lot of money, he needs to play up to his contract. The last couple of days, Xavier Rhodes, the tweets that he's liked the last couple of days have been very interesting. It's funny. Like I said, no one's talking about it. The last 3 tweets that he's liked. And you can find it for yourself. This is at Xavier Rhodes 29_. Okay? So the first tweet that he liked the last couple of days, the most recent one, someone wrote, interesting. I thought Xavier Rhodes played pretty well on the field. Okay, so Xavier Rhodes, he thought he was just fine in 2018. I would disagree with that strongly. I thought he was our worst cornerback, but you know what? I get it. You know, you don't want to be called out in public. Okay, fine. The next one after that, Xavier Rhodes needs a fresh start. So I was like, oh, now it's getting a little bit spicy here. Oh, okay. But nothing's more interesting than this final one, or as far as the oldest one of the last 3 days or however long. Someone tweeted out, Zimmer loves blaming everyone but himself. Xavier Rhodes liked that tweet. Now, let me just throw this out there. I can't speak for Xavier Rhodes. You know how these players, where they like something or they retweet something and they come out later and be like, oh, no, it's just meant for this. It was just motivational stuff. Like, shut up. Shut up. All right? No. I will say this. So I'm a contributor for Score North, right? My director, or my Mike Zimmer, so to speak, to my Xavier Rhodes is Phil Mackey, right? So everything that I do, and I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this or doing that, whatever. I'm like, hey, Phil, what do you think? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. If Phil Mackey was to go out on the Mackey and Judd show with Rami Makloff and be like, you know what? That realistic Randy guy, you know what? He needs to do better. He wasn't as good as last season. All the podcasts that he did last season is not as good this year, right? And he needs to just get better, right? And then all of a sudden, if someone tweets at me or someone tweets about me and says, you know what? Interesting. I thought Realistic Randy did pretty good podcast this season, or Realistic Randy needs a fresh start, or Phil Mackey loves blaming everyone but himself, and I like all of those tweets. Let me tell you something right now. There's nothing to it. I mean it. If I like something, that is an endorsement, all right? Or the only other excuse to it is either you really like what they're saying, you agree with what someone is saying on Twitter, or you're like drunk. You had like 4 or 5 glasses of wine on a Friday night. You're just chilling, and you're kind of half falling asleep a little bit, but you got your phone open on Twitter, and your thumb is navigating around the phone, whatever, and then all of a sudden your thumb just taps on a like button by accident or something like that. You're just like, whoa, that's happened to me like once, or I don't know what it was. I think it was like Joe Budden Podcast, which is a great podcast, by the way. But if they were like, hey, we're giving Realistic Randy all these perks and stuff, whatever it is, I'm like, you know what? Hey, if I like certain tweets like that, that's really saying something right there. So I don't know, man. I just think Xavier Rhodes, he needs to play better. I would trade him, but they're probably going to keep him. We'll just have to see how this all plays out. I don't know what's going to happen in 2019, okay? Rick Spielman getting an extension. Xavier Rhodes still going to be on this team, whereas Trey Waynes is probably going to be the odd man out that's traded away. I don't know what's going to happen in 2019. All I do know is that the schedule hasn't been released yet, but as far as the opponents that they're facing next season is absolutely brutal. On one hand, the positive that you can take away for this Vikings team is that, okay, we brought in Gary Kubiak, a mastermind on offense, a former Super Bowl champion head coach. He's going to give the direction. He's going to give this offense the direction that they need to be as successful as possible with the personnel that they have. On another hand, in free agency, the Vikings made all these moves and everything like that just to bring back the same roster that they had last year that went 8-7-1 minus Josh Klein. We'll have to see how that goes. But they went all through free agency for the most part, like 99% of it, to bring back the same roster that went 8-7-1 minus a Sheldon Richardson. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think it's fair to judge what this team is going to do until after the draft. After the draft, that's going to give you a real sense of direction as far as where this team is headed. So, anyway, moving forward from that, the last two items that I want to talk about is two rule changes. By the way, getting back to the Phil Mackey, if he was to ever talk smack on me, whenever my contract is up, by the way, if you haven't noticed, Matt Khalil, he signed with the Houston Texans. He's on a 1-year, $7.5 million contract. This is why I could be an NFL GM, because I would never sign a dude like Matt Khalil. I want Matt Khalil's agent. When my contract is up with Score North, damn it, I'm going to have Matt Khalil's agent come in, be like, Phil, Derek Wetmore, hey, what's up, guys? Look, we need to talk. My contract is up. I'm going to let my agents do the talking. That's Matt Khalil's agent, by the way. Give me like, I don't know. I mean, I may be okay. I'm maybe not the greatest podcast. Give me like $10 million. That's all I ask for. Maybe I'll get it. So anyway, moving forward from that, two other items to talk about is really two key rule changes in 2019 that the NFL's competition committee or owners, whoever, decided upon this. Number one that I completely agree with, and one not so much. Let's talk about the one that I really don't agree with at all. Now, blindside blocks are illegal now. You will get flagged with a 15-yard penalty for blindside blocks, and I don't agree with that at all. I get that they're trying to reduce the amount of concussions and lawsuits and all this stuff. I think we're getting to a point. We need to understand one fundamental, idea or one fundamental fact when it comes to football. It is a violent sport. Okay, it's a very physical sport, and there's nothing you can do. You can only do but so much to take away big-time hits. Now, every couple of years, it seems like they're taking away one little aspect of the game to where it's like, the joke is, you should just put flags on them and it's okay. Well, we're really getting to that point now. It is football. It's football. Blocks are part of the game. What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do if you're a lineman or you're a receiver that's running with your man that's got the ball? What are you supposed to do? If a defender all of a sudden if he knows that he's about to get blocked and he turns his shoulder like, nope, I'm away from you now. Like, what are you supposed to do? Just, go on by and tackle my man. Like, come on, it's football. We're getting to a point now where it's like players that get drafted, you should just give them a waiver form. Give them a waiver form. This sport is likely, there's a significant chance that you may suffer head damage, brain damage, CTE, whatever it is. And hey, but guess what? You'll get compensated a lot of money. And if you accept these terms, then hey, so be it. Go ahead and play the game. But eliminating blindside blocks, I just think that's really unfair. You're really taking away from the quality of the sport of football. I don't agree with that whatsoever. And I think if I'm a defender and I know that rule is there, and if I'm a coach, I'm going to tell my guys, turn your back towards the oncoming blocker so that way it's a blindside block or a block in the back. It's just really not fair. The second rule that I completely agree with now is that pass interference calls are now reviewable. Completely agree with it. In fact, up to this point, if I was an offensive coordinator or if I was a coach, I would tell a quarterback and a receiver, hey, just go deep, go long, throw them the ball, and guess what? You either are going to catch it or kind of just nudge into the defender a little bit and throw your hands up and then fall to the ground to act like you got defended. Because guess what? They're going to throw a flag and it's going to be pass interference and you advance up the field 40, 50 yards or however long it is from the line of scrimmage. And it just wasn't fair. That could be a game-changing type of play right there to where it's like now it's reviewable. The NBA, they review fouls all the time. And don't tell me about taking up time or extending the game. The NFL, all these long-ass, bum-ass commercials that you play in between possessions is just really not fair, or not even not fair. It's just what you do. You're going to get as much money as you can. Then, damn it, don't talk about extending the game. You're doing it already right there. You might as well just review these penalties, or more specifically, pass interference calls, because those are really big time impacting plays potentially right there to where it's like you need to get it right. Because all of a sudden, if you're losing a game because of some BS pass interference call, that's not really fair. You need to really do that. So now that they're doing it, I'm very excited. But the blindside block, making that illegal, it's like, what are you doing, man? It's football. Just make it flag football or two-hand touch, and then we'll go from there. So anyway, we do this twice a week. Mediokr, Best Sports Podcast, Realistic Randy. Hope you guys enjoy the show. You can follow me on Twitter at realistic_Randy, Facebook at Realistic Randy. Next podcast will be on Score North on Tuesday. We will see you next week.